الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ثم ما بعد. How many of you would like to have Salat al-Isha to be for 2 hours? Right? 2 hours? Anybody wants to pray Isha for 2 hours? Imagine we start at 10:15 and we finish by 12:30. Allahu Akbar. Isha, Tahajjud and Fajr all together in one Salah, right? MashaAllah. Definitely, no one would like to be trapped, in an obligation Salah like this. I mean, if you want to pray Tahajjud by yourself, you would like to make it 5 hours perhaps. But when it comes to the Salah and leading the community, that's the matter over here. How about Khutbah al-Jum'ah? How many of you prefer Sheikh Umar's khutbah versus my khutbah, right? Sheikh Umar is always, mashallah, half an hour and more, right? Mine is about 15, 20 minutes, right? No, but seriously, what is the right way of doing khutbah and salah when you serve the public? Let's hear from the Prophet ﷺ here. Hadith number 148 in Riyadh al-Salihin, al-Iqtisad fi al-Ta'a, moderation in worship. قال وعن أبي عبد الله جابر بن سمرة السوائي رضي الله عنه وارضاه قال كنت أصلي مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الصلوات فكانت صلاته قصدا وخطبته قصدا رواه مسلم. Very short hadith, subhanallah. He says, I used to observe salah with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his salah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam salah, was of moderate length, and his khutbah was also of moderate length. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam salah was moderate, and khutbah was moderate. Not too long, not too short. Why is that? Because when you serve the community, it's about them, not about you. When you give a khutbah, that's not a time to show your eloquence of speech and how much sophisticated you are with your topics and the arguments and so on. Like I know that especially young khatibs, when we try to train khutbah and young khatibs, they would love to deliver the entire message in the khutbah. Okay, but that's going to take you, 35 minutes, 40 minutes to do that. I know, but I'm going to have you because I don't want to cut it short, because so it's not about you. It's about the people that you're now addressing right now. Because the moment, and here's the irony, subhanAllah, it's the paradox of time, by the way. The paradox of time. As long as the khutbah is 15 minutes, because you've been told the khutbah is going to be 15 minutes. As long as 15 minutes, you're good. If the khatib finishes at 14 minutes, you love him forever. Right? But the moment the khatib extends 1 extra minute after 14, if it becomes 15 minutes or 16 minutes, it is too long. This is the paradox of time. Like, it's still 60 minutes. I mean, if you consider the 60 minutes altogether, right, it's still 1 minute more than 15. And for 15, it's okay for you. 14, even better. 1 extra minute, 2 extra minutes, the entire khutbah becomes too long for you. So when we say moderately, what does it mean? We have to take into consideration also that perception of things. So therefore, the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes he would like to extend his salah, but he makes it short. Khutbah, the same thing. For the Prophet ﷺ, the khutbah was not educational. Khutbah bin Nabi ﷺ were not educational. They were actually inspirational. Like, it's for inspiration. Because the people are around the Prophet ﷺ the whole week. They meet after salah, he walks with them, they live their life with the Prophet ﷺ. And mashallah, these people you're talking about, the Sahaba in Medina, were what? We're all charged with Iman, right? Like they're already built with it. So what do they need on Friday? A long, list of tasks and duties to do? No. They would just do a push, an inspirational moment for them so they can push it to the next week. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ khutbah were, just very short khutbah. Salah, usually sometimes a bit longer than the khutbah. Because that's what matters. You want them to connect with the words of Allah, not your words. So that they can listen to the words of Allah subhanahu more than anything else. But what is moderate? So to give you the moderation of the recitation of salah, an incident happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ in which one night Rasulullah, actually the matter of fact, a Sahaba, they used to come to the Prophet ﷺ's masjid to pray with him, and then they disperse to their communities and they lead their communities in salah. So Muadh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu was one of those young people who was very respected by his local community. So he prays Isha with the Prophet ﷺ, so he doesn't want to lose the privilege of being with the Prophet ﷺ and the honor and the reward. And then he goes back to his masjid, and the people will be waiting for him. So he'd pray with the Prophet, then he goes to his masjid and leads the people in salah. One of those nights, he probably was very inspired by the salah behind the Prophet ﷺ. He was so, mashallah, in a spiritually charge. So the moment he started Salat al-Isha, he started reciting Surah al-Baqarah. Taking his time. A young man in the back, he couldn't take it. So he broke his salah, and he went to the back, prayed by himself, and left. That community is small, everybody knows everybody else. So the moment he finished, when Muadh finished the salah, probably maybe close to Fajr time, some of the people says, you know, XYZ, he didn't like what you did, so he broke his salah, prayed behind by himself, and he just left home. Muadh, being a young man in his early 20s, he goes, leave him, he's munafiq. So his friend went to the man at some point, told him, Muadh said such and such about you last night. He goes, he did? I swear, La rafa'na wa la Rasulillah, I'm going to complain to the Prophet ﷺ. So this young man goes to the Prophet ﷺ, قال يا رسول الله, Ya Rasulullah, look, I'm a shepherd. I spend all my day in the desert, grazing these camels, being there all day, hot, thirsty, exhausted and tired. And when I come back to salah, I mean, for me, it's just to pray and do my duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, go home. وَإِنِي لَا أَفْهَمُ دَنْدَنَتَكَ وَلَا دَنْدَنَ مُعَاذ. I honestly don't understand what you recite and what Muadh he says. He used the word dandana, which means like, I don't understand your humming and his humming. It's too much for me. And Muadh, he comes and he recites Surah Al-Baqarah for us. I can't stand this. And the Prophet ﷺ said, he did that, so he calls Muadh. Muadh was summoned. And the moment the Prophet ﷺ said, قال أفتان أنت يا معاذ? Like, are you serious, ya Muadh? Are you going to cause people to leave Islam? Muadh, he said, I've never heard the Prophet ﷺ being so stern and giving advice, Anas as well. I've never seen the Prophet ﷺ being so stern and giving an advice the way I've seen him advising Muadh in regard to the length of the salah. And he keeps telling him, أَفَتَّارٌ أَنْتَ يَا Muadh? Like, are you serious? You're going to cause people to turn away from Islam because of this? So then the Prophet ﷺ said, if you're going to be leading people in salah, you're going to need to recite خَالَ فَلْيُخَفِّفْ مَنْ أَمَّا النَّاسَ فَلْيُخَفِّفْ. If you're going to be praying for the people, make it easy. And he gave examples. He said, recite, and he gave surahs such as اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق سبح اسم ربك الأعلى والشمس وضحاها. Read these surahs. قال فإن صلى لنفسه فليطل ما يشاء. If you're going to be praying for yourself, then recite as long as you wish. But when you lead people, make it moderate. So the Prophet ﷺ is giving us the standard, saying about half a page, 3/4 of a page, 1 full page per rak'ah. طيب, what if the people in the masjid, they love your recitation and they keep asking you, could you please make it longer? If that's an unanimous thing in the community, or at least the vast majority, then it's okay for the imam to recite longer. What if a guest comes over and says, La ilaha illallah, what is this salah? Inshallah, rewarded, inshallah ta'ala. But if the people of the community, they love the longer recitation, it's okay. They can do that. Otherwise, you go by the average of the example of the Prophet salawatullahi wa sallam. Similarly with the khutbah. When you give the khutbah, again, it's not about, explaining the whole thing, the whole thesis in 2 hours. No, 15 minutes, 20 minutes will be sufficient to deliver a message of inspiration to the people and let them learn after throughout the week. Some masajid, unfortunately, what they do, they want to make the khutbah very long to make sure all the people attend before the salah begins. One of the worst techniques for the khatib, طبعا. Why is that? Because the longer you make it, the later they start coming. Like the longer you make the khutbah, everybody's going to start coming when you make the iqamah. So if you keep pushing it even actually longer, the same thing. One time I was actually invited in a masjid to give khutbah. So they told me, I asked, okay, so when do you guys start? So he mentioned we started this time and we finished by this time. And he gave me 45 minutes khutbah time. I said, is that for the khutbah and salah and everything? He said, no, that's just the khutbah. I said, are you serious? What am I going to be talking to people for 45 minutes on the minbar? He says, well, Shaykh, the people here, they come slow and they come late. I said, because you're making 45 minutes. That's why they come late. He said, so what are we going to do? I said, have someone recite Quran for me first before we give the khutbah, and then we give the khutbah maybe for half an hour or something. So one of the brothers volunteers to make the recitation of the Quran. And the moment he started, after 5 minutes of his recitation, I felt so bad for him. He was losing his breath, and his face was turning red. I said, you know what, just finish. And I gave the khutbah for about maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes khutbah. Man, subhanAllah, it was one of those difficult times. Because it's not the sunnah to stand on the minbar, torturing the people by punishing the early comers for the lazy ones. Why do you have to start it to make it very long for this? No, you give the khutbah in 15 minutes. People will learn next time they have to come early. Otherwise they miss the khutbah. That is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. كانت صلاته قصدا وخطبته قصدا. So if you're going to be leading people in salah, make sure the length of salah is easy as well as the khutbah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us some of those who listen to the speech and for the best of it, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Wallahu alam. Any questions, Jama'ah? Yes? Is it true that the Prophet ﷺ, he recited Surah Al-A'raf in Salat al-Maghrib? The answer is yes. He did that actually when he was living in Fatih Makkah. Also, one time the Prophet ﷺ gave a khutbah that extended for hours. But that wasn't khutbah, it was actually a lecture, you could say. But that was during his end of his life to tell them everything about the Day of Judgment or the end of time. So these special occasions, they're okay, but not the standard. Wallahu alam. What if half the people love your voice, the other people don't, right? Make two salah then. A long one for those who love you, the other one is for those who don't. I mean, do your best, just make it in the middle, inshallah.
So on that note, can you invite one of the Qur'an from Ramadan, Sudanese recitation?
For tahajjud or for Isha? For Isha or tahajjud, you say? Isha or tahajjud? I mean, every now and then, if someone shows up, we'll bring them in, inshallah ta'ala. Bidnillah. Nah. Yes.
So Muadh, he prayed Isha first, right? And then he prayed with his Jama'ah.
Yes.
So he prayed Sunnah.
Uh-huh.
Jama'ah prayed
Fard. Yes. So the question is, if Muadh already prayed Isha with the Prophet ﷺ, so when he went back to lead his people in Salat al-Isha, was he praying Sunnah or Fard right now? He was praying what, the Jama'ah? He was making Sunnah or Nafil. Meaning, and that's an evidence and a proof that it's okay for someone who is praying Fard to pray behind somebody who is praying Nafil. That's the proof to it. Because Muadh was praying Isha twice. One with the Prophet ﷺ, which was his Fard, and the other one was his Sunnah, so it's allowed for him to do that. Wallahu a'lam. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.